is certainly a mental state, especially it's a thought. Among many thoughts, this is one of them. And when we see an object, any object, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, craving arises. All these senses, five senses, bring information to the mind. They call all together, it change its name. When they all come together, that whole thing is called mind objects. So when the mind object is present, the mind reacts in the way we like, dislike, or neutral. If we like an object, craving arises in the mind as a mental state or thought. This is how craving starts. It can start from hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. But when we hear a sound, or if the sound is pleasant, we like it. That is craving. If we try to reject, and there arises a desire to reject. That also is craving. And then when we smell, when we have a neutral feeling, then there will arise a confusion, then mind remains uncertain. So whenever mental object, any object comes to the mind, the craving arises in the mind. It is a mental state. Now, that is also called sankappa or vitakka. There are 6 vitakkas. Vitakka means thoughts. Thought of greed, hatred, and delusion are unwholesome thoughts, or vitakka, unwholesome vitakkas. And wholesome vitakkas are generosity, loving friendliness, and wisdom. That is alobha, adosa, amoha. Lobha is craving. Alobha means generosity or not craving. So this is listed even in the Noble Eightfold Path as number 2. First is understanding, second is thinking. When the understanding is wrong, confusing, especially when it is wrong understanding, misunderstanding, then either greed, hatred, or delusion arise. When the understanding is right, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion arises. And therefore, craving is a mental state. We use the word craving among many words for the same thing, whether we say desire, like, or inclinations, and love, whatever terms we use, they all mean the same thing with different nuance, different shades of meaning. But in essence, all of them are synonyms of craving that arises as particularly in our minds. Nowhere else can they arise. And therefore, craving is a mental state, and that is why we have to develop our mind through understanding, through mindfulness, investigation, mindful reflection called Yoniso Manasikara. So we have to overcome this craving. In fact, craving is one of the two main causes of our suffering. One is ignorance, other is craving. They both arise in the mind. And that is why Buddha put both of them in the same pedestal, or use them as equal partners of these defilements. So therefore craving definitely is a mental state. There is no doubt about it. Okay. Any other question?
Bhante, I don't understand this question, but you might, and if you don't, Anne can probably elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the factors of the dependent related links a bit more?
Yes, I think I'm going to explain it to some extent now. And in this series of little talks, I am going to elaborate them in more details one by one. I mentioned when one factor arises, the other factor also arises. For instance, when ignorance arises, the volitional formations arises. When ignorance passes away, volitional formation passes away. It happens even temporarily. For instance, when ignorance is subsided, the thought of greed, hatred also subside. And therefore, depending on the degree of ignorance, our defilement arise, and when the ignorance completely disappeared, craving and other defilements disappear. So that is how the ignorance, in fact, is the general factor of all factors of dependent origination. That means in every step of the dependent origination, ignorance is present. That is the most powerful dominating factor. Whether it is desire, craving, and desire, or other volitional formations, consciousness, mentality, materiality, name and form, mentality, materiality, sixfold base, and so on. Or in all the 12 factors, ignorance is present. That is why when ignorance is destroyed, everything crumbles down. It has a sort of like a domino. When one is destroyed, everything will destroy. It all has a domino effect. And therefore, ignorance is the main key power that powers everything else following that. Okay? Now, you may ask more questions after that. Now, let us begin our meditation and get ready for that. You Metta Sutta.
Yeah.
Can you share screen with Metta Sutta?
Let's see. Oh, wait, 1 second. Recent. Listen. Okay.
Okay.
And then I go here.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay. We all, you can see on your screen the Metta recital. May all beings be happy and secure.
May
May all
all
beings
beings
have
have
happy
happy
minds,
minds,
whatever
whatever living
living beings
beings
there
there
may
may
be,
be,
without
without
exception,
exception,
weak
weak
or
or
strong,
strong,
long, large,
large,
medium,
medium,
short,
short,
subtle,
subtle
and
or
gross,
gross,
visible
visible
or
or
visible or
invisible,
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 living
living
near
near
or
or
far,
far,
born
born
or
or
coming
coming
to
to
birth.
birth.
May
May
all
all
beings
beings have
have
beings
happy
happy
have happy
minds.
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 Let
Let
no
Let
no
no
one
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 deceive
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 another,
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 nor
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 despise
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 anyone
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 anywhere,
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 neither
neither
from
from
neither
anger
anger
nor
nor
ill
ill will
will should
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 anyone
anyone
wish
anyone
wish
wish
harm
harm to
to
harm to
another.
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 As
As
a
As a
mother
mother
would
mother
would
risk
would
her
risk
risk
her
own
her
life
life
own life
to
to
protect
protect
her
her only
only child,
child, even
even so
so
towards
towards
all
all living
living beings,
beings,
one
one
should
should
cultivate
cultivate
a
a
boundless
boundless
heart.
heart.
One
One
should
should
cultivate
cultivate
for
for
all
all
the
the world
world a
a
heart
heart
of
of boundless
boundless loving
loving
friendliness,
friendliness,
above,
above,
below,
below, and
and
all
all
around,
around, unobstructed,
obstructed,
without
without
hate or
hatred or
resentment,
resentment.
whether
Whether
standing,
standing, walking,
walking,
or
sitting,
sitting,
lying
lying
down,
down, or
or whenever
whenever
awake,
awake,
one
one
should
should
develop
develop
this
this
mindfulness.
mindfulness.
This
This is
is called
called
divinely
divinely
dwelling
dwelling
here,
here,
not
not
falling
falling
into
into
erroneous
erroneous
views,
views,
but
but
virtuous
virtuous
and
and endowed
endowed
with
with
vision,
vision, removing
removing desire
desires
for
for sensual
sensual
pleasures.
pleasures.
One
One
comes
comes
never
never
again
again
to
to
birth
birth
in
in
the
the womb.
womb. This is very wonderful, powerful, noble thought that we want to cultivate and want to wish all who that suffer from this coronavirus and all those potential of having coronavirus and their friends, relatives, spouses, children and parents and so on, and those who are supporting them to recover, medical professionals, hospital nurses, hospitals workers, uh, and those who support physically, financially, and spiritually, and those who are making decisions to accelerate the recovery, and everyone be well, happy, and peaceful. This is a very sincere, earnest, noble thought. With this thought, we begin to pay total attention to our breathing. As we repeatedly mentioned, while breathing in, notice inhaling as inhaling, exhaling as exhaling, and the brief pause between inhaling and exhaling. And notice without thinking of the past or the future, just pay total attention to this pure, simple breath. And then you will feel the breath, perception of breath, attention or thought of breath, and consciousness. You don't have to name them, use words. Without using words, without naming, just pay attention and simply feel or be aware of what is happening. This way you can notice rising and falling only. Others, along with the rising and falling, also rise and fall. For instance, every time we breathe in, feeling, perception, attention, and consciousness change along with the changing of the breath. When we breathe out, feeling, perception, attention, consciousness also change and disappear. New feeling arises when we breathe in. New feeling arises when we breathe out. So feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness change as we breathe in and breathe out. None of them stays behind. None of them become fixed or stay without moving and changing with the breath. When we see this reality, our hindrances, greed, resentment, restlessness and worry, sleepiness and drowsiness, and doubt also will fade away. When they fade away, we gain very relaxed, calm, peaceful breath, calm, relaxed, peaceful body. We experience calm, relaxed, peaceful mind. When all these segments are relaxed, peaceful, and comfortable, our mind gains concentration. In this concentration or concentrated state, we experience the experience letting go. This is not a word. Mind will not be interested in holding on to anything. That is what letting go means. Secondly, we experience real friendliness, metta, in our real total personality. We experience compassion, feel compassion towards all living beings when the mind is calm, relaxed, and peaceful. These are the thoughts that naturally arise in our mind. Then we have joy. When we experience this, joy naturally arises by itself. We don't do deliberately anything to arouse joy. That leads to happiness, and that definitely leads to concentration. With that concentrated state of mind, we can see more subtle, deeper, and very refined state of changing. Minutest things change. We have no time to think, verbalize, but simply pass because they all change so quickly, so many things we cannot count them. And with this, we stay even more concentrated, more peaceful, and with deep awareness and mindfulness. Dukkha patta ca nidukkha, bhayam patta ca nibbhaya, soka patta ca nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all living beings be. Once again, I like to remind everyone that we cultivate this thought together with one mind, one heart, as one body of living beings for the benefit of all who are in pain and suffering. We want to wish all of them be free from fear, tension, anxiety, and worry, and recover from those who are in pain and afflicted by this COVID-19. We want all of them to recover, and all those who depend on them be free from their anxiety, worry, and some of those who have lost their friends, relatives, and some have fear of dying. All these beings be free from fear, tension, anxiety, and worry. And all those who are supporting them to recover, helping in many ways, hospital staffs, doctors, nurses, especially these people who dedicate their lives. Sometimes I heard some risk their own health, and some even have been affected by the COVID-19 because they are so devoted, dedicated, compassionate that they don't even care for themselves and they want to help these people. These are wonderful, noble beings with wonderful, noble heart. May all of them be well, happy and peaceful. All those who are in pain return to normal life, free from sickness, and live long in very good health. This is our earnest wish every day we make for after and beginning and end of our meditation. Now, friends, you may ask me some questions related to our topic, dependent origination. I have not explained, explored the entire dependent origination. We just started, and I want to go slowly, little by little, because the subject is very deep. If I load you load on you all information very quickly, nothing you may remember, and therefore we go slow and we are not in a hurry. I know some of you are very anxious to learn it and learn it very quickly, but others and some can learn very quickly and some are slow. Therefore, I want to follow middle path, go slow for the benefit of all. So may I ask questions?
Bhante, the first question for the latter half of our program is uh, ignorance same as the identity view or sakaditi, or is it same as the sense of I am, asmi mana, or not knowing Four Noble Truths, or is it something else?
Ignorance, it is ignorance.
I think the person wants to know ignorance of what? Is it
Okay, I mentioned few. Ignorance of the dependent origination itself is ignorance. Ignorance of the nature of five aggregates is ignorance. Not knowing the Four Noble Truths is ignorance. Not knowing the three characteristics as they are is ignorance. Not knowing the extremes is ignorance. And so there are, when sometimes we say greed, hatred and delusion, or in Pali, lobha, dosa, moha. Moha is another name for avidya, ignorance. That means in everyday life we have avidya or ignorance in us. They never leave our mind until we attain full enlightenment. And sometimes we call michadhiti, avidya. Michadhiti means wrong view, wrong understanding. Wrong understanding definitely comes from avidya. The avidya means in Pali word avidya. Vidya means science. Avidya means nescience. That means there is no clear understanding. And therefore, greed, hatred, delusion, all this arise. I mentioned it is just like groping in the dark. We don't see things as they really are. This is very heavily loaded, repeated phrase or sentence. No, not knowing things as they really are is ignorance. Knowing things exactly as they are, wisdom. Now I mentioned this morning that ignorance, the opposite of ignorance is wisdom or proper, correct, right understanding. And that is why the Noble Eightfold Path begins with right understanding. In order to fight wrong understanding or avidya, ignorance. So ignorance perpetuates our samsara. Samsara, the repetition of birth and death. And understanding and wisdom bring that repetition to an end. So one is called samsara cycle, other is dhamma cycle. In samsara cycle, samsara means repetition of birth and death is called samsara. It goes on and on and on. and therefore it is called cycle. Pali is called Vatta. Vatta is circle. To stop this circle of repetition, we have Dhamma cycle. Samsara cycle begins with ignorance, Dhamma cycle begins with understanding. So that is why in the dependent origination, ignorance is the beginning. In Noble Eightfold Path begins with right understanding. So these two are going together. Whenever ignorance is there, right understanding is not there. When right understanding is there, ignorance is not there. And these two don't exist together. However, understanding has levels, ordinary mundane understanding and supramundane understanding. This is called Lokya Sammaditthi, Lokuttara Sammaditthi. Lokya means in the world. Lokuttara means beyond the world. I am also going to explain the word world in the Buddha's dispensation. I can mention it right now offhand, but details we can discuss some other time. This is very real explanation in Buddhist text, especially in Samyutta Nikaya and even Anguttara Nikaya. We find this definition. The world is this body with mind and or mentality and materiality with consciousness is called the world. We have, each and every one of us has a world. There is a very famous sutta in Samyutta Nikaya, Rohita Sutta, that repeats in Anguttara Nikaya as well. Rohitas was a son of a person called Bodhi, and he developed, he practiced meditation and developed his mind, and then gained supernatural power. And because of the supernatural power, he could travel at the speed of maybe like bullet. He did not, text doesn't say he's as fast as the light, not that speed, but not at the speed of light, but not even at the speed of bullets. Text says he could travel at the speed of arrow. When somebody, very strong person, shoots an arrow, it goes very quickly, runs very quickly. His speed is like that, like a speed of arrow. Then he thought, with this speed, I must go to see the end of the world, where there is no sorrow, lament, birth, decay, death, sorrow, lamentation, and so on. I want to go to the end of this world. And he traveled at the speed for 100 years, except stop for eating, answering the call of nature, and sleeping. All other times he traveled. And then he could not come to the end of the world and after 100 years he died without reaching the end of the world, end of the universe. So he came to the Buddha one day, then he died and born as another deity. And he came to the Buddha when the Buddha was alone one night and asked the Buddha, can someone go to the end of the world by traveling? Buddha said at once, no. Then this Rohitasa, now he is now he is known Rohitasa, he thanked the Buddha very well, sir. It is marvelous, wonderful. I did this traveling to find the end of the world when I was in such and such a life, and I could not find it. I traveled for 100 years. I could not find the end of the world. So then Buddha, after telling him, you cannot go to the end of the world by traveling. Then when he thanked, Rohitasa thanked the Buddha said, but without reaching the end of the world, you cannot end suffering. These two statements sound contradictory, illogical. Then this Rohitasa was little stunned. Then Buddha explained, Rohitasa, this Vyamate Kalebre Samanake Samanake Vyamata Kalebre Lokancha Panyapemi, Loka Samudayancha Panyapemi, Loka Nirodhancha Panyapemi, Loka Nirodhagamini, Patipadach Panyapemi. That means in this one body with its consciousness, do I declare the world, origin of world, end of the world, and the path leading to the end of the world. That means I declare the world, origin of the world, end of the world, and path leading to the end of the world. This means this same body, 1 fathom body. 1 fathom is not fathom that we use today. I think the fathom is 6 feet. We all are not, I particularly not 6 feet long. I mean, person, tall person. So 1 fathom in this explanation is when you stretch your hands like this from middle fingertip to the other middle fingertip, that distance is 1 fathom. So each person has that person's own fathom. In this 1 fathom body, with its mind, with its consciousness, do I declare the world, beginning of the world, end of the world, and path leading to the end of the world? That means 4 noble truths. So Buddha said, without reaching the end of this, that means without realizing the 4 noble truths perfectly well, suffering, origin of suffering, end of suffering, and the path leading to the end of suffering, you cannot reach the end of the world. So in Buddhist explanation, the world is us. Each and every one of us is a world. In this world, we have all these ignorance, craving, and all this in this world. So this is what we have to keep in mind whenever we use the word without any further explanation. if we use some other explanation like uh, six senses, their sensory objects, and so forth. In that case, these six senses in us and their objects outside. In this respect, we use the word we as the world, and its relationship to the rest of the world is others, is the external worlds. So because this internal world, this world, our world, is made up of the same external world that makes other uh, beings. So if we don't explain in that way, the world to us is our own mind and body. So I think I simply wanted to explain the word world for us in future to remember in our discussions. Okay, friends, this is all the time I have this evening, and I'm very happy that you all came and participated in this meditation. This meditation is primarily for our improvement, cultivating our mind, and with the same state of mind, we want to pure, clean state of mind. We want to wish all the suffering beings to be free from suffering and return to their regular ordinary life and live long in very good health. Thank you. Good night. See you.